Lakshmi? No, she comes later, right?
Yeah. He's here. I just want to request something from you, which I have totally forgotten. We need your permission before we can record this program.
Yes, that's very kind of you, of course. Yeah. Of course.
Thank you so much. Om Shanti.
Thanks. Someone just said Holland and Peru is also here. So.
Oh, how lovely. Isn't this amazing that on a Sunday morning you can sit in Miami and be together with people from all continents in community. And the Brahma Kumaris, I think, very quickly rose to the occasion when we obediently, right at the onset, went into lockdown, so that our centers were no longer gathering spaces, and yet knowing that we are an essential service, that people do need spirituality. And very, very quickly, and in fact, it was almost like as if this was already in the elementary stages just before everything happened. You may have seen that in your life sometimes, where something happens and what you were doing before you realized was actually a preparation to meet that eventuality or that situation. And so what we have been finding, as I'm sure many in our other service places are finding, that there would be limits to the number who would say come for morning class due to, again, work situations, not least due to travel situations, and the same thing in the evening. In fact, I thought that people were just finding it more and more difficult to create time in their ever-expanding responsibilities and schedules to take and make that time, even if it was just 1 hour for themselves, but it usually necessitated an hour in traffic and 45 minutes to go back home again, so the whole evening was gone. And so in this way, people can be in the environment with others and without any physical hassle, so to speak. And so one thing that I would like to do just for a moment before we get properly started, and is what I would do if we were together. And that is to ask you for a moment of silence and just relax into quietness and comfort. And maybe just whisper to yourself, I am peace. Thank you for that. I know that when we do this in a physical gathering, it's like there's a shared vibration. It's almost as if, in a subtle way, whoever is there influences, if you like, or draws from the speaker something which they need to hear, something which they may already know and just require affirmation of, or perhaps even to have one of those aha moments. And so even though we have to talk, we have to speak, yet there is another energy that is at work, which is something I value greatly, and trust more even than just words, because words can be learned, words can be repeated, but what we're speaking from, hopefully, is an experience. And Dadi Janki, without a doubt, the wisest human being I have ever met. And I feel there won't ever be another, because her words and who she was and what she did and what her vibration said were all in tandem with each other. There was no dichotomy between anything. As someone said recently, Dadi Janki was real. And like the person whom she tried to emulate, Brahma Baba, the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, she gave her all. She spent her life in being of service to others whilst constantly working on herself. There weren't contradictions, even though, wise as she was always and ever, until she left, in a learning mode. She always had the quality of curiosity. Curiosity so as she could improve things, learn things, help you in what you were doing. And so I met Dadi when she was 60 years old. I was 26 years old. And yes, it was one of those situations wherein the very first meeting with her, I was not a member of the Brahma Kumaris at that stage. I was in the beginning throes of studying with them, but there was nothing in my being at that time that felt compelled to join or belong to any organization. There was a yearning, yes, for silence, for an inner life, for a means to maybe help the world. But the idea of aligning with one organization over another didn't have an appeal, and even, I think, made me sense that if I aligned with this organization, then I was rejecting whatever was coming from anywhere else. That was me in my ignorance. I didn't understand. But in meeting Dadi, and as I say, it was very specific. And rather than telling you the whole story of what happened, I'd only been coming to the center for 3 or 4 days as an acolyte. You know, I was just learning. But she picked up something from me that I was trying to convey to another teacher. The other teacher wasn't getting it, wasn't understanding me. But Dadi Janki, who wasn't even focused on me, picked it up. And she simply gave an indication through her hand, through her gesture, and through her eyes that said to me, you never have to do anything you don't want to do. And so that moment is forever imprinted on my mind. Dadi wouldn't remember it because it's my story, not hers. But the point was that she got me. She understood me. And this was something that I came to know about Dadi very quickly, even as I still wrestled with some of the ideas in terms of the the deep teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, was that Dadi understood hearts. And the only one that is usually given that title is God. And so she had made her life so that it was similar as it could possibly be to God. And so in this particular thing, I could give Dadi many titles, which are also titles of God. But of course, in order for them to be titles of God, God would have had to have demonstrated them by giving them, if you like, to human beings, or making it possible for human beings to become the epitome of that themselves. And so the idea of truth, of wisdom, of love, and not least, understanding hearts. Actually, she understood heads as well, but she was able to sometimes ignore the head space that you were coming from, knowing that you would much rather be aligned with what was in the deepest recesses of your own heart. And so I was, the title today is of a book that Dadi had written, or was compiled on the basis of classes that she had given. And it's entitled, I Know How to Live and I Know How to Die. Now, I'm not sure people are interested in knowing how to die. And so I can take it at a superficial level, but rather it is this idea, which is not unheard of in other religions too, that of, in order to live, I have to die. But it's not dying physically. It's dying in another way. And I'll tell you a quick story. I hope you'll understand it. In 2015, which is, I believe, when that book came out, and Dadi had come from India to London, and I happened to be on retreat in Spain. And during that time, I got news of a young man who had passed away. He had been a student of the Brahma Kumaris, and he was in his 40s, so he was very young. And he had a chronic illness, which ultimately took his life. And when I got to London, I had the occasion to be in the car with Dadi, and we were traveling to Worthing, where she was doing a program. And so Dadi was in the back seat of the car and I was in the front. And I asked her, thinking about the person who had died and him being so young. Of course, death is no respecter of age. And I said to Dadi, Dadi, is death success or failure? And Dadi came back very quickly. She had forgotten who the person was. And we can easily forgive her, because at that stage, she was 99 years old and she wouldn't have seen that person in a long time, maybe 8-10 years. And she came back with the quip, which I never thought I would hear from Dadi's lips. So, is death a success or failure? And she said, read my book, which I just thought was very funny. But later on that evening, when she was in the program and she was being interviewed by a journalist, she referenced the situation, not in a direct way, in terms of, oh, this was someone's question to me, or this had happened. And she said something along the lines of the person was unhappy, maybe even depressed, and they found a way to get out. And it instantly resonated with me. So she didn't say success or failure. So success at one level, in that it was what the soul wanted, and maybe failure at another level, that it didn't realize that it had so much of value to contribute to the world, and whereby they could continue to make a difference. And so that was the amazing thing, that Dadi had a way of operating in time and out of time, and that she could see the three aspects of time, the past, present, and the future, simultaneously. And she would give answers out of the blue, or she would say things. And it's like somebody said once, Dadi knows, but she doesn't know that she knows. And I always attributed that to the fact that Dadi worked so hard on purifying herself. In other words, she had a very clear objective that she wanted to become like the Father, just like they're told in Christianity, be ye perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect. That Dadi had this aspiration. She was no longer a devotee in the traditional sense of the word. She didn't worship, she didn't pray, she didn't chant mantras. All that had been part of her childhood. But the return of that, and as is mentioned in the Gita, that the fruit of devotion is knowledge. And then with that knowledge, endeavoring to be closer to God and to become more like God. And also a huge part of that, and one of the things that Dadi would always focus on, or that you would see as a key element, be honest, be true to your own self. Be true to your own self. And so the thing was, how to be true to your own self when you don't even know what your true self is. And this was something that we came to know, both through the knowledge that was being offered, the philosophy, if you like, and then seeing people like Dadi as an example of that. And wherein it wasn't just about following, but it was this value for your uniqueness, your individuality, and the move towards freedom. And so not even clearly knowing what I needed the freedom to do or be, or what it was that I needed freedom from. Dadi was my role model. And so just to go back a little in terms of her story, that, as you may have seen in the film, brought up in a traditional home in India. Can you imagine? She was born in 1916. That is, you know, ancient history. And very little education, minimal education. Did the traditional thing, which was prescribed for a female at that time, getting married at the tender age of her teens, and then discovering that there was something more, and having a revelation, and what later became the huge organization that is across the whole world that we know today as the Brahma Kumaris was then in its baby stage. But what was it that compelled Dadi to move away from what tradition offered her, the limitations of what tradition offered her, and with no validation, no proof in front of her as to what would happen to her life, that she, I think we could say that this was her first death, that she died alive to social norms, to what was expected of her, and was so enticed or intoxicated by the experience that she was in that she had never felt before. And it looked to others like she was throwing caution to the winds. I once asked her, which virtue do you think is yours, Dadi? And she attributed every single virtue to God. It was only God's influence in her life that allowed her to have these qualities. But finally, she acknowledged that if she had to accept one, it would have been courage. And she was part of this courageous little group at the beginning who, as I say, with no proof of anything, rejected one lifestyle and adopted another. Is she asking you to do the same thing? No, not really. Not really. Today in my meditation, I had this image of what I think was how warfare took place in ancient India. And the image was of right at the front were the elephants and the elephant riders. And so they were there to clear obstacles, to get rid of the problem, and to flatten the land, to make it easy for the cavalry to come in and do their work. And so when I look at this organization, I think of our seniors, and but for maybe two of them, all of them are now gone. And they too would be in their 90s. And seeing what they did, and spending 14 years in isolation, studying these things deeply, having intense experiences in meditation, living a minimalist lifestyle where maybe for a time all they had were the berries on the trees in the forest to feed themselves with. And then after that period, coming out into the world to serve humanity and be of service, be of use to God, if you like. And so I really feel that they did so much of the groundwork for us that does not necessitate our going into isolation, the current situation notwithstanding, but that it is possible to live in the world, meet all of our obligations, and yet have a very dedicated inner life. And that inner life is what informs and guides our outer life and our relationships. And okay, I mean, my fortune in relation to Dadi Janki is incomparable. I don't know how I got to be so lucky. I really don't. But having, after a number of months, gone to India, literally 4 months after I encountered the Brahma Kumaris, I went to check them out at source, and had such an intense experience in meditation that there was no choice. I couldn't do anything else but heed the call, and came back to London, and was going to, I had some things, I stayed some 5 months in India, went back to London, and I left London not as a Brahma Kumari, not as a traditional student of Brahma Kumaris or anything else. I was still in my seeker mode, searching. And I went straight from the airport to the center, simply because I had something to deliver to Dadi Janki. And she said to me, it was a Saturday evening, she said, where are you going to go tonight? Because I'd been in India, as I said, for 5 months. Where are you going to stay? And I said, well, I'll go stay with my brother who lived not too far away. And Daddy, knowing all things, said, but you won't be able to get a bus in the morning to come to class. Why don't you stay here for a day or two? And so I had no intentions of living in the center. I had intentions to be a regular student, but not to be living a dedicated life in the center. But this is what I see, that Daddy saw the future, that Daddy knew. But she's not going to say to me, I know what your end is, I know what you're going to do. But in the present, that just by saying, oh, thank you, Daddy, I'll stay here for a day or two. And then it becomes the rest of your life. And there was a time when I wondered, so I lived with Daddy from 77 till she sent me to America in 1982. And I often wondered why there was so much love for her. And then once, when she was giving a class in India, in Mount Abu, and I was sitting in front of her, and I wondered, because really the relationship with it was such an easy relationship. It was just, I told her right at the beginning, when I wasn't coming to class regularly, I said, I'm not sure I like what you all teach, but I like you. I like what you have to teach, so I'm coming because of you. So anyway, that then changed, and I began to have recognition of the Supreme Being, of God, and how that was what had molded Daddy. So, but still I wondered, why do I have so much love for her? Is it because I know that she has a lot of love for me? And I realized, no, that wasn't the reason. And it was because I saw in Daddy everything that I ever wished for my own self. I saw in her. And so it was a profound realization, and yet it is now a spiritual idea that I think that everyone is familiar with, whether they utilize it or not, that you only see in others what's in yourself. And so, or if not what's in yourself fully emerged, at least you're seeing possibilities for yourself. And of course, the other side of it is true as well, that what you reject in others is what you haven't come to accept in your own self. You're still rejecting the idea of it in your own self. And so this was why I had so much love for her, because she was my aspiration in real life, to have the character that she had, to have the qualities, to have the love and the wisdom that she had, I used to see myself as an old lady, which I now am actually, much older than Dadi was when I first met her. I used to see myself as this old lady who would have more in common with young people, as I saw with Dadi, rather than just her peer group. And so then this was the thing. She was a model, but Dadi would never give permission to be her devotee. Not at all. That and then the other thing that I came to realize, that I knew Dadi before I met her, that it was a very old relationship, and many years after I'd been living with her, and she had been unwell actually, and she came down one day it was a Thursday, which is a special day for the Brahma Kumaris, and when she was sharing the toli, which some of you may be familiar with, it's a sweet, and that penetrating look that she would give you, she would be in God's remembrance, you would be in God's remembrance. And in that moment, I realized, or I had an answer to a question that I had asked a number of years before coming in contact with the Brahma Kumaris. And that was, who is praying for me? Because I felt so protected. I found myself in very tricky situations. And because I traveled a lot and would find myself, even in sometimes in dangerous situations. And yet I always emerged unscathed, unharmed. And there was this strong feeling, because I didn't pray at that time. That part of my life, I was brought up Catholic, but that part had finished. But I was a seeker, no doubt. But there was the feeling that somebody, and this was the language that I knew, that somebody was praying for me. Of course, I didn't know that somebody was meditating for me. And in that moment in front of Dadi all those years later, I realized that part of the work that she would do, besides cleaning up her own consciousness, if you like, her own memory tract, bringing it back to its original state, was that she was also sending vibes. She was sending a current, sort of like, just like now, amazing that I sit here and I'm able to communicate with the world. We can't see, what is that energy? Where is that coming from? Where is it going to? We all use it, but we don't fully understand it. We don't fully comprehend it. And so with Dadi too, that part of her work was that she knew that she had to send out a current, not only to alleviate sorrow and suffering, not least of those souls who had love for God or who were supplicants of a higher power to help them in their distress or their agony or whatever it was. But she was also operating like a searchlight. And that was to find those souls, who were seeking, actively seeking a way back home again. She told the story that she once asked God, did you find me? Or was it after all of my searching that I finally found you? And the reply she said that she got from God was that actually you weren't searching for me all that much, but I needed souls like you. And that made me smile, because before coming to the Brahma Kumaris, and as I say, I was a seeker, and I had a sense that my life wasn't going to be traditional. It wasn't going to be about, you know, family and career and all of that kind of stuff. And I wanted to do something as well to help the world, but I didn't have any qualifications or talents. And the sense was, after that, that it was almost like as if, you know, God is always on the lookout. And as soon as he gets a hint that you want to help, then it's like, get that one's name. And so I feel that all of us, whether we know it or we don't, are aspiring towards something higher. Our pure, true, deep desire is to be able to contribute and to find, people talk about finding purpose, and it is there within each one. There is a destiny within each one. But at some point, you know, we make a choice. And the beautiful thing in this transaction, you can give as much as you want. In other words, you can contribute your time for studying, for spiritual practice, to whatever extent you want, or to the extent you wish to draw divinity into yourself and become perhaps not a huge amount of people, comparatively speaking, but one of the few. And as I say, you don't need any special qualifications to actually make a difference to this world of ours. You know, I was, again, very lucky in that barely 3 weeks before Dadi left us, I was able to spend time with her. And already the whole thing of the coronavirus had started. This was in February, middle towards the end of February, but it hadn't yet reached that stage where we were regarding it as a pandemic. And Dadi, who just, you know, a couple of weeks before, she was still giving classes, and she had to go into the hospital. She was in ICU. And at that time when I arrived in India, it wasn't possible for any of us to go see her because of her being in ICU. And not so much even the concern with her being in ICU, because she had a separate little cubicle, but that we wouldn't infect or pass anything on to the other patients who were in there. And I was supposed to be going to Delhi for a silence retreat, but I thought, I can't leave India without seeing Dadi. And again, everything worked out in my favor, if you like. The day that I was able to go with another couple of sisters, Dadi, having spent 3 days sleeping, was awake, was alert, was on the chair, was able to meet us through, as we call drishti, this spiritual gaze. And, you know, she would touch your face, hold your hand. And the only thing she said was Om Shanti, you know. And so that was my final meeting with her. That is, until the next time, because I do know that there will be a next time. And so it amazes me, what a magnificent being, what a pure being, the effect that she had on people from it amuses me sometimes when I see all these pictures of Dadi with famous people. You know, the famous people weren't who she lived her life with or for. You know, they happened to be a component of her life, but she lived her life with ordinary people, and it was her ordinariness that made her extraordinary. Her approachability, her availability, you know, her door was always open. Whoever you were, whatever you were, Dadi had a welcome for you. Dadi knew you and was able to see only the best in you. And here she was, this simple little giant. She was less than 5 feet. She was smaller than me, and yet such a giant of a personality and a matching heart and intellect, and that she was able to touch everyone, you know, whether it was men, women, children, everyone flocked to her because she was a mirror for something beautiful in all of them. But that courage of hers that came to a foreign land with no language skills and just a couple of sets of a change of clothes. And I know that somewhere deep in her soul, that even though she always said that she'd had a vision, and her vision was of taking God, that being of light, the parent of humanity, that she was traveling around the world. Of course, she'd never been out of India before, and that she was going around the world with this being between her two hands, and she was showing this being to everyone so that they could draw from that being and become like that being. And from that humble home, how she lived, you know, I'm sure some of you have heard these before. And for me, you're not just hearing it, but I've seen it. I was there, and I saw how that little room that she was in, herself and Sister Janki, she slept on a door. The door was supported by bricks. And so she slept there at night, Sister Janki on the floor, and in the morning, a quick turnaround, and the bed was dressed, and it became what they call in India a gadi, or like a teaching platform, from where she would teach the few students who were there at that time. And you know, the interesting thing, so many things, but one thing I'm very clear about is Dadi's complete renunciation of anything material, anything that wasn't immortal and eternal. And when I say renunciation, I'm not saying she rejected material things. She knew they had their place, but nothing in her being was dependent upon anything or anyone. And it was because, I feel that it was because of her renunciation of only subscribing to the highest possible code of conduct, that it automatically ensued that everything material became available. And so the organization went from this tiny little house room, really, It didn't even have heating, let alone, it didn't even have a fire, let alone central heating or anything else. To them having, you know, big buildings that could, not for show, but that could accommodate all of the numbers of people who were drawn there by the, what I would say, the incessant meditation, focus on God and a life of divine benefactor, if you like, the divine benefactor, and that energy would draw more and more people. And so, of course, in drawing more and more people, you had to have a place for them to be. And so I feel that all of this at one level came easily, not because anybody was raising funds or charging for anything, but it was this aspect of renunciation. And I also feel the other thing, you know, Dadi Janki really should have been known. She should have been famous, as was the founder of the Brahma Kumaris before her, but it was not either their objective, nor was it to be, you know, that the message was more important than the one who was delivering the message, and the one from whom the message came, which is the Supreme Being, was also more important than them. And so that she was never famous in her lifetime, but she was so well known across the world, and not well known for anything other than the fact that she had impacted their lives and made their life worth, we would say, diamonds, but gave them a perfect reason to show them that they had something of value in them that they could also contribute to help to bring about change. And just as a byproduct, there was happiness, and there was love, and there was understanding. That's just a little bit about my beloved Dadi, who continues to serve in her angelic form and through each one of us who knew her. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Sister Bodhi. We just felt like Sister Bodhi took us to Dadi. And, thank you so much. And, to invite any thoughts, any questions, please feel free to type in the box there. Sister Lakshmi, would you have something to add?
Actually, it's not what I want to add. I just want to share something. My cheeks hurt because I'm so happy. If you could see my face, you say it's amazing energy you shared with us. Thank you so much. Your mic is on mute, sister. That's why we cannot hear you.
There we go. Sorry, I'm seeing many friends here. That's very nice.
I just want to share a little story of myself. It's a very little story.
Yeah.
I won't take.
Where are you? Where are you? Are you on camera? Can you put your camera on?
Yes.
Lakshmi, then?
There I am. Can you see me?
I'm
This is
scrolling.
yeah, very first one.
I got you. Yes.
20 some odd years ago, when the organization decided that I'm okay to be a coordinator, that I'm worthy being a coordinator, they said they have given me two options. They said you can go to Miami or you can go to some other center. And lo and behold, I opted for Miami Center. For whatever reason, drama would have it, I was sent to a different center, but for a few days I was absolutely disappointed because at that point in time, I knew who you were. And you, for me, I always say this to everyone, when you meet God, you meet so much, meet so many people that are so wonderful. Absolutely, they personify something that so resonates within you. And for me, um, something about you, I wanted to learn from you, but now, because of whatever reason, here we are, face to face. Almost, I can almost kiss you right now. It's amazing, but thank you so much for coming on this Zoom, and you are amazing. Thank you so much for being a role model for Baba's family.
Just like I said, my lovely sister, whatever you see in me is something that's in yourself.
One more thing that I want to share is there are three types of children, Baba's children.
Okay.
One, they come to meet Baba, meet God, and Baba says, wow, and they say, wow, and then mutual admiration society begins. A second type of children become, Baba says hello, and child says hello, and Baba says, and the child says, and then they part company. And to me, the third type of people is me. It depicts my personality. I met Baba. Baba met me. And I said to Baba,
bye
later, and he said, no way. And he chased me for a long time. I was so adamant because you were one of the people, one of the instruments, seniors, kept telling me, you make a wonderful instrument. You need to become the coordinator. I was worried about being egotistical. I said, no way, I'm going to do that. And I don't want to wear white. And also, I don't want to give up my bling blings because I was very body conscious. But here we are, 30 years later. I'm in God's company because you are a companion of my Father. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I think I would say I would have been in the third category as well. And so you come to learn that God almost has jealousy, that he wants you so much that he's willing to fight for you. Someone just asked a question about how Daddy overcame her illnesses. Two things come to mind, and I from when I first knew Daddy or went to live with Daddy, there was many incidents of various kinds of illnesses, many stories, and her going to the hospital for the first time, and we're talking about, pre-1982. But two things. I remember once she had a severe problem with her leg. I don't remember what the diagnosis was, but she wasn't able to get out of the bed. And she made the statement, she was sitting up and she goes, leg, you are here, pointing to her leg. I am here, finish. And then one other slogan of hers, which I really liked very much. She said, everything is for the ascending stage. And, as we mentioned Daddy's illnesses, she focused on what she had to do, which was remembrances. Not to say that she didn't experience pain, my great good fortune, I never saw Dadi when she was in the throes of those severe episodes, of which there were many in her latter years. But I then also have to acknowledge Sister Hansa. And Hansa was the person, you may have seen her in the video before, and she took care of Dadi. And again, was it Hansa just by herself? At one level, no, but Dadi's, could we say Dadi's karma, Dadi's fortune, whatever, emerged that soul, and looking after Dadi became the means for Hansa's and Devi, the little nurses, spiritual progress. There were some brothers too, but principally Hansa. And I used to feel like as if somehow it was almost as if Hansa was able to occupy Dadi's body and know exactly, even better than the physicians and the specialists, what was required. And there was even a situation once where it was an extreme situation. And it was decided, I'm not going to take any names here, by the attending physicians and the specialists, that Dadi should be operated on. And that was conveyed that this situation was such an emergency, she needed to be operated on. And so one of the other teachers, instruments, came to Hansa to tell her, this is what, I hope Hansa doesn't mind me telling this story, but just showing you her courage and her love and such an instrument. And they came to Hansa to tell her this is what they were going to do. And Hansa said, if you decide to do this, I'm walking out that door and I'm never coming back. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And she was absolutely right. She was absolutely right. The thing turned around, the diagnosis changed, whereas they would have put Dadi through all of that for nothing. That she had such a, such a connection in terms of understanding that body. Otherwise, how could Dadi, we know the quality of the soul, we know the quality of the intellect, but how could something made of matter, a human body that was already in a deteriorated condition even before she left India, they used to think when she talked about going abroad, and she was in bed at the time, suffering from some malady or another, and they said, okay, we'll humor her and we'll get her a passport, never thinking that it would happen, and so that at that age, how could Dadi have lived to be 104? But for, and so what amazes me, and of course I've been in conversation with Hansa since, is the quality of her love as well. I mean, what kind of love is that? 24 hours a day, every day. And this might amuse some of the those of you who are from an Indian background, or even the Brahma Kumaris who are there. But one of the goddesses of India is called, one very dear to my heart, Saraswati. And she's the goddess of wisdom. And, each and every deity or goddess has a chariot that she rides. And you know what Saraswati's chariot was? Hans, the swan. And of course, she would, Hansa, which was her name, the caregiver's name, but she would insist that Daddy would keep moving. And I'm not talking about moving from bed to classroom. She would take her around the world. You know, last year, Daddy hit, I think, all 5 continents. She was in India, then she came to Dubai, then she went to Nairobi, then she went to London, and then she came to the US. So in that short space of time, so just like Saraswati couldn't go anywhere without her chariot, the Hans, the swan, Dadi Janki, the same. The Dadi Janki's overwhelming thing was to serve, to be of service. Anyway, so in that way, so both, you know, the power in the soul. Like today, our lesson was to do with accumulation. And so you would have to say that Dadi Janki was the embodiment. It wasn't just that she got some spiritual power and then she spent it, but that she was always accumulating. And so she had that wherewithal to be able to maintain soul and body for such a long, long, long time. Yeah, with the help of Hansa. And of course, our little desire that she should stay with us for as long as possible. Yeah.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. I know we're on a time.
No, it's not that. Yeah, we have a Shubhra Ben from Ohio and
yes,
Ohio family. Shubhra Ben, you want to say hello to the family and also especially Dadi Ben?
Shubi, you need to put your camera and your mic. That's it. Now you need to put your camera on.
You can't see me? What do you
No, no.
What
I can
because
see.
we are...
There you are. Now I can. Now
you can see me. Now
yes.
You can see me. Okay.
Yes.
Because I'm not technology savvy, and what happens is, I'm just kind of playing around trying to get some of these Zoom to Zoom. It is like too much for me to deal with.
No, so you're perfect.
Okay. Now, okay. Thank you. I just wanted to say that thank you for such a beautiful class. You know, I mean, we all know, not only I, but after watching your videos over the, year, we just feel that you were so close to Dadi, and you just, you can see that emotion coming from your heart when you talk about Dadi. So much, so much of love for her and that respect, because she was your mentor in some ways. But when I look at you, I find that you are the same angel which you look in Dadi for all of us, actually, in some ways, because you are just so loving and affectionate yourself, and when it reminded me, or it brought back those beautiful memories when you were here. And I was just thinking that, I hope this coronavirus thing just gets over and we have you all here in the Midwest once again, so that you can just, bestow her with those beautiful vibrations you carry with you. So thank you. And
I think this is true for when I look at all of you. Would there be any difficulty in having love or affection for such souls? There wouldn't. I think souls just give them a little opportunity and they will manifest love and affection. It's the nature of the human soul, and so it doesn't take a lot,
So and we
everybody's
also would
loving.
love. That's right. No, that is so true. Sorry, I just didn't mean to cut. I thought you would. But another thing was that I would like you to also come, because Naveen Bhai has a lot of questions and they need to be resolved. So we would want you again to have those sessions and just probably, give him the insight of Baba's Gyan. That will be wonderful.
I like questions, but even more than trying to answer questions, I like to ask questions, because I think everybody has their own answers. And what I love is, with a variety of people, when you ask the question, not saying, you're not giving them the answer, you might have your own answer, but each one of them has an answer that's specific to them. So I'll be more than happy to interact with Naveen and find and
You
see
know,
where we can go.
Yeah, no, I'm going to, yeah, he was saying one day he'll talk. So I'm going to do that very quickly.
Yeah.
And also wanted to thank Lakshmi Didi and Saurabh Bhaiya, such an inspiration always, you know, they give to me being such, you know, at the close quarters and always that support. So I was just thinking that, you know, I love to follow them, both of them. And of course, now we will see you in Ohio as well. Okay.
Okay.
So we've talked about
Thank
that.
you,
Next,
Shruti.
yeah, the
All
following
right.
week.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Om Shanti. Okay, Lakshmi Ben.
I think we have one more question from someone. Petra Doroi. Saurabh, you want to read the question to Vadiben?
I didn't see it come up.
Yeah, it's how did you see Dadi, her keeping the balance between entertainment and discipline?
Between what? Entertainment and discipline. Oh, my goodness. Now it'd be interesting to know what that person means by entertainment. And I'm curious. I wonder if it's from somebody in Miami because they may have heard me reference this. That for me, Dadi was supremely entertaining. And again, you know, different people, just like some people like scary movies, some people like romantic movies, some people like mysteries in their movies. And so in the same way with entertainment, you know, like some will gamble online, some will watch movies, whatever. But for me, Dadi entertained my intellect. And I would always say that when I was close to her, I felt like the pot on the fire, that my intellect would begin to fire and shoot and bubble and everything else. And so that there was always this exchange. And I was sharing with the class the other day. In fact, it was Thursday when I was offering Vogue. And sorry, you may not be familiar with that term, but when we were doing a special meditation, and normally I wouldn't be the one to do the cooking, but there's nobody at the center at the moment, so I have to do the cooking. And it was almost the feeling in meditation that Dadi was making fun of me, you know, it's like, you cooked. And then that sense that why maybe Dadi had love for me was of what I would draw from her. And so that there was always this exchange. I would get excited by what she was saying, and then it would stimulate something in me, and then I would toss it back to her. And there's the sense that many lifetimes it has been like that. And so even when I first met her, because remember when I would have first met her, she wasn't known. There was nobody telling me that she's going to be a future leader or emperor or something like that. All I knew was that it was instant, you know, that I instantly liked her. And there was just an easy relationship, so natural and everything. But the other, one of the qualities that Dadi had, that again, and I know our people from Holland will recognize this too, that she was so quick. She was so quick, you know, when something was said to her or somebody threw something at her in words, that she would have a quick comeback, that she was so entertaining in her, you know, I found her entertaining, even her face, every aspect of her face, whether it was her eyebrows or her eyes, her hands. I often wished, you know, that somebody would put it to music, just music, Dadi, almost like as if she's conducting an orchestra. And then somebody once said, you know, that maybe the Dadi would be giving a class for a very, very long, long time. And maybe you were already saturated, but you didn't care that even though your intellect didn't have the wherewithal to imbibe anything more of what she was saying, you just wanted to be in her company, that it was fine if you weren't catching the depth of what she was expressing, but just being in her company. And I think that it was almost, and this is just conjecture, but because the discipline, I mean, she was so disciplined, but not as a chore or as a difficulty, but the discipline was natural in her. And because there was such natural discipline, she had nothing to fear from what she might say or express, or how she would be with someone. I think that the discipline in the truest, purest sense of the word led to lightness, to easiness, and what I adored in her spontaneity, you know, that she was so spontaneous, you know, in a moment, everything can shift, everything can change. And she never forced discipline on anyone else. Yeah. Okay, Lakshmi, I think we should go on to the next thing now.
And the next thing is a meditation. Before you do that, share one blessing for all of us.
You know, why don't you maybe start some music if you want, and let me go and grab a blessing. I forgot to get it, okay?
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Saurabh? Saurabh, you can sing now, brother. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Okay, I found a box of blessings. So the blessings afterwards or before?
Right now,
Lakshmi?
Saurabh is singing a song.
Oh, he's singing. Okay.
And then
so I have a fresh box of blessings that were given to me as a gift in India, and you will be the first to get one.
Awesome.
So we'll wait for Saurabh.
Oh, thank you.
Dadi's favorite song. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Just thank you. And thank you, Sister Body, so much. Just felt that there's a song, it's a Hindi song, but it means to live in your lane and to die.
Oh, I know it. Yes, yeah. I'm going to go. Should we all go on mute while our brother's singing?
मरना तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, जीना तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, मिट जाएगी हमारी, मिट जाएगी हमारी दुनिया तेरी गली में, दुनिया तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में। आए हैं तेरे दर पे हम जिंदगी लुटाने, तू देखे या ना देखे, तू जाने या ना जाने, पूरा करेंगे हम तो वादा तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, दिल से तेरी मोहब्बत कम उम्र भर ना होगी, हम तुझ पे मर मिटेंगे, तुझको खबर ना होगी, मरने के बाद होगा चर्चा तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, जीना तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में, मरना तेरी गली में. Thank you. Om Shanti.
Okay, so a blessing. Bear with me. And we pick one at random. Okay, it's a good lead up to the meditation. The special tool for the power of silence is a pure thought. And with this tool, you are able to see the successful form of whatever you want. So first of all, experiment with this on yourself. Pure thought. And you'll see the successful form of whatever you want. Experiment with this on yourself. As Dadi would say, be true to yourself. Know yourself. So we take just a couple of minutes. Yeah?
Yes, please. And thank you once again. It's just
Oh no, my pleasure.
Thank you.
And where do I bring that pure thought from? It's always just there, just out of sight, obscured by all that might seem to be more important, including worrying and concern and critiquing. And so let me just simply relax knowing everything is okay. I am on schedule, in time. Nothing to draw me away from this moment and my being together with myself, my best self, my original self, the uncreated self, the self that is a reflection of the highest divinity. Just remind myself, peace is my nature. It's there, wanting me to invite it, ready to serve me and to comfort me. I am peace. And suddenly, there's space. And into that space, a sliver of light that is also made of peace. By my thought of peace, I have attracted the one whose peace the world seeks. And I am combined. And I hold that peace. And affirm that it is my nature. Om Shanti. Okay, thank you all. Lovely to be with you. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever time zone you're in. Lovely to see Europe there too. Great.
In case everyone can turn on their webcams, that would be great. We can all see each other if it's possible.
I think everybody can see each other anyway, no? We've all become expert now at Zooming. It's so nice. I'm curious, how did you know in Holland that we were going to be here? Come off mute.
We sent our link to Madhuban, and also they put it on one link.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Baba's magic.
Yeah. All right. Okay, everybody. Om Shanti. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
so
Laura.
much.
Beautiful song. Love it.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank
Om
you.
Shanti. Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Shanti, everyone.
Om
Om
Shanti.
Shanti, sister.
Shanti, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Om
Shanti.
Shanti. Om
Thank you all the
Thank you,
angels.
Bhaiya.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shubhra.
Lakshmi
Sorry for
Didi.
disturbing you.
Thank you, Vadi Ben. Om Shanti.
Shanti. Thank you.
Om Shanti.